Hey y'all, welcome to Center Saint Podcast, and this is your host Sleepy. On this first episode, we're going to talk a little bit about where I come from and the two different types of family that I have, from my mother's to my father's side. So a little bit about my mother's side of the family. I never met her father, my grandfather. So her mother, let's describe her mother. Her mother, as she told me from her own mouth, was a Pachuca, and she was from East Los Angeles. Very proud of that. Her and all her brothers and her sister, they were a big family, and they were from Maravilla, from El Hoyo. She had a lot of tattoos as well, and she was the one that started the gangbanging in our family. She was difficult, to say the least, and although I was her favorite, it didn't feel like it most times. So she has 11 children, my mother being, of course, one of them. She had 2 daughters and 9 sons. She was an alcoholic. I believe she dabbled with drugs also. I know that she liked younger guys, and every chance she could, I know that she went to the local bars right there in LA. I know that she had trauma as a child, and she told me that her mother spent time in a psychiatric hospital. She also told me that she comes from a background of witches. Yeah, she was a little wild. She would cuss you out. She wanted everything in a particular way. It was her house, her rules, always. And if you didn't like it, then you get out. Plain and simple. She didn't care who you were, unless you were youngest uncle. Him would kick the world out. I know that my mother, she favored over my aunt. For whatever reasons, I'm not sure. Then we have my dad's side of the family. His mom was from LA, and she lived there most of her life, or all her life. No matter what, how late they stayed out on the weekend or the night before, she had to go to work. She would always go to work. I know that she was a very, very hard worker. I remember seeing that in my life. She was very stubborn. I know that. And she'll cuss you out too in a second. Now, my great-grandmother, she was from Louisiana. And she was a wild child too. Very stubborn and independent. But she loved me a lot. A lot. Like, she really, really, truly, and honestly loved me. Then, my dad's father is also from Louisiana. He was very strict, with me at least. This is only my experience. He was also very determined and very smart, financially, business-wise, things of that nature. He liked very, very nice things, and he liked to take care of his things. Then there's my mother. She, as I said earlier, had 10 siblings, including herself was 11. From her uncles and her aunt, I know she had a lot of cousins. And they used to hang out and party on the weekends and during the week and stuff. They were very close, all of them. I know that she hung out with the gang, and a lot of people knew her. I know she didn't play no games, and that she would fight if she had to. That I've heard a lot of stories about her fighting and defending herself and her brothers. My dad has 2 siblings, a brother and a sister. He grew up in Los Angeles, but he was from the same gang that my mother was from. I know he liked to hang out with his cousins a lot and stuff like that. I know that while he was growing up, he had got into drugs as well as the gangs. When I was born, he was 17 and my mother was 15 years old. Very young. I'm sure it wasn't planned at all. But they both grew up in Los Angeles, despite being from Wilmington. California. They were from Wilmas, from the west side, same as me. From what I understand, when my mom was pregnant with me, it was her first child. She was only 15, but she made my grandmother and I think my dad and whoever else was there go to the hospital a bunch of different times thinking she was in labor, but they would send her home each and every time. That was just kind of a funny story my grandma Norma would tell me. She said, we were so tired of her telling us that she was in labor. And she wasn't. I'm sure she didn't know the difference, you know. She probably thought she was in labor. Anyhow, they were together when I was born, from what I understand. They were young, and they just couldn't get along. I know they used to fight and argue a lot. I know that he cheated on her. I know that they had gotten married at one time when he was in the Navy, I believe. And she went to go live with him on base, from what I understood. I don't know, they had their difficulties as young parents, married. I don't remember their marriage or them being together at all. I honestly don't remember seeing my dad around very much when I was young. But I know that after they broke up, she got with my stepdad, and I do have memories of them two together, and they are not good memories, to be honest. I know that one time I had seen them in the house fighting. We lived at his mother's house, but in the back house there was two houses, and I remember going to the back one night after watching, I believe it was Friday the 13th, the first one that just came out, and I remember seeing them fighting, and my stepdad was over my mom. She was laying on the couch and she was trying to fight him. All I remember is seeing her grab a lamp from the table, bust it over his head, blood dripping down from his head, and I just started screaming. His mom and his brothers came from the front house, took me to the front, and I don't remember what happened after that. Then I remember another time of us in the back of this pickup truck with the camper on it. All I remember is seeing my stepdad trying to get out of the back of the camper. There was like a door there, and we were driving down the street, and he's trying to get out, and all I remember is my mom and someone else screaming, "Oh my God, get him, he's gonna get killed, da 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 da." And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? So I just remember being very scared. And then I remember my mom hugging me, coming and consoling me after they had got him inside. And then I don't remember anything after that. Then the other memory I have of my mother and him together was one night we were at his house and we were playing restaurant. And we made these little menus, which was just a little piece of paper folded in half like a little menu. And one little stick man meant one grilled cheese sandwich. Two little stick man meant 3 grilled cheese sandwich. So, of course, I just wanted one grilled cheese sandwich, so I wrote one little stick man for me. And then my stepdad wrote 2 stick men, so he wanted 2 grilled cheese sandwiches. And I remember going into the kitchen and taking the little paper to my mom, and she was sitting there making the grilled cheese by candlelight. I'm not sure why. I don't know if we didn't have electricity or that was just her vibe or what, but I remember it was by candlelight. And then she said, okay. and she gave me a kiss on the forehead. And then I don't remember anything or any other memory of her from that point forward. I know that from the age of 3 years old, I was sexually molested by 4 of her brothers. And the first time, I can still remember it very vividly, like it just happened to me yesterday. And I remember being very angry as a child because of it. I didn't know what was going on at that time or what they were doing to me. But I just remember feeling that it was wrong. And I remember feeling so much shame, like I did something wrong, like it was somehow my fault that they did what they were doing to me. And it happened probably all the way up to the age of 12. And the first times, of course, were while she was alive. She even caught him, kind of. I remember the first time. I had to have been about 3 years old. We were living on 139th and San Pedro. And I remember him asking me if I wanted to go to the store to get candy. What kid doesn't want to get candy? So of course I went with him. And I just remember going to the store. And then on the way, right before we hit the house, there was this like little shack on the street on Avalon that I used to see every time I went up and down Avalon. I remember going maybe about 10 years ago up Avalon to see if that little shack was still there. 20 years ago I did the same thing, but it was to burn it down, not just to see if it was there. These are the earliest memories that I have that will stick with me for the rest of my life. No matter how hard I try to forget about those times or those things, I can't forget it. And it's been years, and it still affects me the same way. I still remember it so vividly, and I try not to, but I can't forget. Fast forward to a year ahead, when I turned 4 years old. That's when my whole world got flipped, turned upside down. All I remember is my grandmother coming in to tell me, my mother, that she went with the angels and with God, and that she's never going to come back, and that she drowned at the beach or something like that. And I remember crying and kicking and screaming. I just wanted my mom. I didn't want no one or nothing else, because I didn't know anyone or anything else but her for those 4 years. No matter what, it was her and I. If she went out, she took me with her sometimes. It was just the way that it was. I was always with her. So when they told me that, I did not want to be with anyone. From that point forward, I was a very, very difficult child no matter where I went. I remember my aunt telling me that everyone in the family was fighting over me so I can go stay with them. But as a child, I don't remember being wanted in all of those houses. After my mom passed away, I went to go stay with my dad's grandmother, which is my great-grandmother. And she was very, very loving, very protective over me. So much so that I could not play with the kids. She lived on 129th in San Pedro. I couldn't play with the neighbors' kids or anything like that because she didn't want anybody messing with me or bullying me, because then there would be a problem. She was no joke, okay? She loved me very, very much. There's actually a story in our family that my grandmother chased my other grandmother around the house with the ice pick because she was trying to take me away from her, and my grandmother was not having it. She said, I will unalive you before I let you take my baby away from me. I don't think she was really going to do it, but I'm just saying. That's what transpired. That's what took place. So I ended up with her for about 4 years or so, I believe. I know that when I was living with her, I went to Catholic school for 4 years. I was very much loved and taken care of with her. The only thing with that is that she was very, very overprotective. And I couldn't do anything. And we had to do what she wanted to do, which was from the time we woke up in the morning, we would watch Young and the Restless, All My Children, One Life to Live, and General Hospital every single day. And then at night, we would watch the Carol Burnett Show or the Lawrence Welk Show. How I knew that at 5 years old, I had no idea. But I did. I knew about all those shows. I knew what was going on with All My Children and Erica Kane. She was very much into her stories. Very much. And of course, I was right there behind her. It just got very boring. I had no one to play with. She would kind of play with me, but not really. So I would mostly be in the backyard by myself, just laying down or playing with whatever toys she got me, which I was very spoiled. Financially, I was very, very spoiled. And emotionally with her as well. She used to hug me and tell me she loved me. And I remember her telling me that everything that she owned, her house, her money, everything, she would show me a bank account when I was little. And she said, this is all going to be yours. Of course, it never was, but she used to tell me that all the time. She loved me so much. Then one day I decided that I would rather go stay with my other grandmother because my little cousin, which was like a sister to me at the time, we grew up together, we were about 2 years apart, lived there. So I wanted to play with her and be with her. So I called myself running away. I think I was about 8 or 9 years old. I can't remember. But I walked out of her house, and I can't remember if it was up Avalon or San Pedro, but I knew which way my grandmother's house was. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to go walk over there and go tell them that I want to move in with them. Well, my grandmother caught me, of course, running down the street. She threw my little butt in the car. She was so mad. I believe she was more hurt than anything, more worried than anything. But yeah, I got popped that day. And she said, why did I run away? Why did I leave? And I told her I wanted to go stay with my little cousin. And she was very upset. But she took me to my grandmother's house and said, I remember her telling them, you guys win. You guys win. Here she is. She wants to be here with you guys. And then her leaving. And I don't remember seeing her too much after that. But I do remember being at my grandmother's house. I don't remember too much of it, and I don't remember how long I was there for. But I do remember this one specific time that I was in one of the bedrooms. I believe it was my aunt's room. And my grandmother was going into the top of the closet to get, I think it was a pair of shoes or something off the top of the closet. And she put a chair there to get up there, and I told her, no, don't do it, you're gonna fall. And she told me, shut up, get out of here, you little witch. So I was like, okay. So I just stood there and watched her, and as soon as she went up there, she fell. And she got so mad at me, like it was my fault. And I remember her being on the floor just throwing a shoe at me, telling me to get out of here, you little witch. I did have fun at Grandma Norma's house. We used to play a lot. I remember when the 105 freeway was being built behind our house, because we lived on 118th and Avalon. My grandmother used to tell my cousin and I, you guys go play on the freeway. And we'll be like, no, we're going to you guys get out of here. You guys go play on the freeway, laughing and joking. Then I remember my aunt, my little cousin, and I staying with my grandfather in Carson. I remember all of us staying there together. And we stood there for a little while. We went to Broad Acres. There wasn't too much going on at that house. And then I remember living with my grandfather and his new wife. And I remember it being very strict there. I, as a child, can only speak on how I felt. And I didn't feel wanted there. I felt very disciplined there. I remember it being very strict there. Not too much hugs or I love yous there. And I'm not sure what happened, if I got to be too much to handle, but I remember having problems in school and problems at home. And then I remember moving in with my aunt and my cousin in Buena Park. And boy, Buena Park was amazing for me. I had a lot of fun in those apartments. We had a lot of friends in the apartments and at school, my cousin and I. It was amazing. My aunt really took care of us. And it was just us three. So when my aunt would be at work, my cousin and I would be, of course, at home. You know, we're big enough to take care of ourselves. So my aunt would teach us little things that we can do at home. She taught us about our hygiene and things like that. She was very loving. I remember her hugging us all the time. She was very strict as well. With the discipline, but she balanced it. She showed us love and discipline at the same time. I remember this was our house in Carson, but this is the lengths that she would go for us. The Cabbage Patch Dolls had just came out, and it was, I think it was around Christmas time or so, and she said that she drove to at least 20 stores. I could be exaggerating, but it was at least 20 stores that she drove to. They were all sold out. She finally got us the Cabbage Patch Dolls that we wanted, and I remember mine to this day. We wanted those Cabbage Patch Dolls so bad. Anyhow, that's the character of my aunt. She would bend over backwards for us and do a lot of things for us. She was very loving and understanding and strict. Like I said, she was very strict as well. So, but I didn't mind it, to be honest with you. I kind of probably needed it, at that time in my life. And my cousin and I, of course, we used to get into arguments and fight like sisters, but we loved each other very, very much, and we were very close at that time. And I remember prior to living with them, I remember wanting to be with my mom's side of the family so much because I just wanted to be closer to my mom. None of my dad's side of the family talked about my mom at all. I heard minimal stories of her over the years, and I was just very, very much missing her, so I wanted to be on her side of the family so they can tell me stories about her and things of that nature. But at this time in Buena Park with my aunt, I remember being so content with my aunt and my cousin. Life was good. I graduated from 6th grade to the 7th grade. I remember that. And I also remember the day that my aunt told me my dad was going to move in with us. That he was trying to clean his life up and that he was going to stay with us for a little while. And how did I feel? And of course, him being my only parent, that's all I ever wanted, was him to be around. And he never was. Of course, he had his own struggles and things of that nature, but I don't remember seeing him very often prior to this time. Anyhow, he moved in with us and everything was okay at the beginning, but as soon as he moved in, he told me, "I'm your dad, so I'm going to be responsible for you now." And I didn't understand what that meant at that time. And I was just like, okay. I just kind of went with whatever was going on around me. What could I do? I was a kid. I couldn't fight anything. Everything was out of my control. So one day he comes and he tells me, you better not be late from school. If you're late from school, you're going to get in trouble. I don't want you wearing any makeup. You can't be talking to any boys. Just all these things, he didn't want me to do. And I'm just thinking, dang, he just got here. He doesn't even know me or anything, and he's just telling me all these things. So I'm like, okay, whatever. One day my cousin and I are coming back from school, and we're late. I think it was about maybe 10 or 15 minutes late. It could have been 20 minutes at the most that we're late. My aunt she was at work, but from school to home, we used to walk with a group of kids, just so we would all be safe together, a group of kids that lived in the apartment buildings with us. We would stop at the store on the way home and then, come home, do our homework, clean up, whatever we needed to do. Well, this particular day, we stopped at the store. We took a little longer than I was supposed to be home. There was no curfew for my cousin, but I could not be late. I ended up being, like I said, 20 minutes late at the most. My dad snatched me by my arm and told me, "What did I tell you?" And I'm not sure why I said, "I don't know," but that was in my vocabulary a lot when I was young. I would just always say, "I don't know, I don't know, I don't know." Even if I knew the answer, "I don't know" would just come out. So he got so upset with me because I said that. And he said, "Didn't I tell you that you weren't supposed to be late? Didn't I tell you that?" And he said, in the Bible it says to discipline your children. Something about spare the rod and spoil the child, or something to that nature. And he showed me in the Bible where it said something about disciplining a child with a rod. That's all I remember. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he picked up the metal rod that would stop the sliding glass door from opening. And he took that and made me face the corner. And he hit me with that metal rod with little ridges around it for 15 to 20 minutes in the corner that day, because that's how long I was late. And I just remember standing in the corner, being hit repeatedly over and over, crying because it hurt so bad, and I couldn't do anything about it. And for some reason, when it was over, I don't even remember what happened after that. But what I do remember is being a kid and wanting to protect my dad, and not wanting to tell anyone what he was doing to me, because I loved him. Even though he was never there for me, even though he didn't know me, he was all I had to me in my mind. He was the only parent that I had. So I just wanted him to love me and accept me. That never happened. Anyhow, then the next day, or a few days later, I remember going to school, and my friends were putting on eyeliner. Mind you, we're 12 years old. We're curious about makeup and things like that. I remember a friend of mine being able to wear eyeliner and mascara. And I was like, I don't know if my aunt will let us, And she was like, well, you can put it on, and then we can wash it off before you get home. Or it should be gone by the time you get home if you put it on now at the beginning of school. So I said, okay. So I put the eyeliner on at the end of class or school. I thought that I had washed all of it off, but I did not. When I got home, my dad seen me and said, what do you have on your eyes? And I said, nothing. And he said, yes, you do. You have eyeliner on. Didn't I tell you not to wear makeup? And I got scared and froze immediately, and I didn't say anything. So again, he said, you know what's going to happen now, right? So I had to stand back in the same corner for what felt like an eternity. It could have been only 10, 15 minutes. But I remember standing in the corner, facing the corner, being hit again with that same metal rod that I had got hit with prior. I just remember crying and crying for my mom. I was wanting him to stop. I don't even know if I asked him to stop. I was so scared. I just wanted someone to help me. No one was there to help me. So I kind of just went into myself and kind of just prayed that everything would be over. And it was over. And I was finally able to go into the room with my cousin. And she's sitting there crying. And I'm sitting there crying. And then I don't remember anything else after that. From that day. Then I remember another day when I had came in. I had a crush on one of the guys that lived in our apartments. And he was 13. I was 12. And he used to come by our back little patio with his brother and tell me to go to the back of the parking lot that was in the back of our apartment building. So we would go back there and we would talk and we would hug and hold hands. Well, one day, the guy has his arm around me. And I think he was about to kiss me because he started coming in. And then my dad comes around the corner. And I remember telling him, move. My dad's right there. He said, I thought you didn't have a dad. I said, I don't, but he's right there. So he moves his arm real fast. And then my dad's like, what are you doing? And of course, nothing. I don't know. The first things that come out of my mouth. So he blows it. He snatches me up, takes me into the house. And guess what happened? The same thing that happened to the days prior. I was standing in that corner again for another 10 minutes, what felt like an eternity, crying, being beat again with that metal rod. There was another incident in Buena Park that we were in the swimming pool, and someone saw the bruises that were on my leg. They were all the way from the top of my butt to probably the back of my knees. All that was black and blue. And I remember her saying, oh, I'm going to have to tell him to stop hitting you that bad, or so much, or something to that nature. And when nothing happened, and my dad was still living there, I was like, nobody can protect me from this man. No one can protect me. Like, he's going to end up killing me. That's what I was thinking at the time. And one day I went to school, and as I said prior, I remember being very protective over my dad and not wanting him to get in trouble for the things he was doing to me. So when everyone would leave to go outside for PE, that's when I would go in and I would change, put my shorts on. Well, this particular day I hadn't been dressing up for PE because of all the bruises that were on the back of my legs. So my teacher said I'm going to get in trouble if I don't dress up. So I went back in, I dressed up, and there was a little girl coming into the locker room while I was changing, and she saw all the bruises that were on the back of my legs. She told me she knew exactly what was going on, and that if I don't tell the principal and the police, that she's going to tell for me. So I said, oh my goodness, what can I do? Like, she seemed like she was really going to tell on me. So I said, okay. So I went with her, and I said, well, you're going to say it since you're the one that wants to speak up. So she was like, I'll tell him, I don't care. So we went to the principal's office, she told, and they asked me what was going on. I didn't want to talk about it. They said, okay, well, you're going to have to talk to the police when they come because we have to call the police. And I said, okay. So I sat there in the principal's office until the police came. And the police came and told me what's going on. And I just remember being so young and, I don't know, feeling like I couldn't trust them for some reason. I don't know why. And I didn't want to talk to them about anything. And they said, you have to tell us what's going on inside your house. And I said, nope, I don't want to. And they said, if you don't tell us what's going on and who did this to you, we're going to take your aunt to jail, and we're going to take your cousin away, you and your cousin away from your aunt. So I said, okay, my dad did it. Immediately, they said, okay, go get your backpack in your locker, and you're going to come with us. You're going to go to Orangewood, foster care. And I said, okay. So I remember them telling me if I can get undressed so they could take pictures of me. And I remember crying and being very scared, and them taking a lot of pictures of me on my backside. And I just remember being very scared. Scared that I've never been scared in my life. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. My aunt wasn't going to be there. Now that I was comfortable with her, being with her, I was being snatched away from someone else now. This was like the 5th time I've been moved since my mother passed away. So I remember going with the policeman and going into the foster care. And I remember seeing all these kids. Everyone looked sad. Everyone looked very mad and upset. And I remember being scared. I was very scared. I was scared of what was going to happen to me there. I didn't know where I was going to go or who I was going to live with. They were asking me if I had any other family. I just told them my grandmother, which is my mom's mom. Then I remember going to a bunch of group homes, foster homes, and things of that nature, in and out. When I would go, I would run away. Me and the other kids, we would go run away to like a local park, sleep in the park. If we could get our hands on alcohol, we would drink alcohol. If not, we would mostly just sit there and cut ourselves, just so we can feel something. I remember literally getting a razor blade and just looking at my left arm with the razor blade in my right hand, feeling so numb to everything that was going on around me. And I just wanted to feel something. So I would get the blade and just start cutting myself and cutting myself until I felt something. And then I would stop and just let it bleed. At this point, I contemplated suicide for a second time. The first time was when my dad was beating me, and I felt like I had no way out. And this time as well, I felt alone. No one was coming to get me. No one was coming to rescue me. The only person that loved me, which was my aunt, I thought she loved me. She was my godmother, like a second mother to me. And she never came to get me. Of course, she picked her child, which everyone did, pick their own child over me. And there I was, no one's child. No one protected me. No one was coming to save me. I just wanted to leave this earth and be with the one person that truly would pick me over everyone. And that was my mother. In the next episode, we'll conclude and pick up where we left off. And that would be when my mother's mom got me from foster care and I went to live with her.